stands, because my vision of a digital Ghana is as strong as ever. It is a vision that led me as president to deploy massive fixed and wireless broadband for reliable internet across our country, and it remains an undying vision. We need to be young in mind and in spirit, and this is a fabulous time in history, a time which we must be bold, create, and take advantage of the huge opportunities the digital world, particularly the digital economy, affords us. And so based on this vision of a new, vibrant digital Ghana, the next NDC government under my administration will partner with local tech startups and businesses to launch a digital jobs initiative to create at least 300,000 skilled employment opportunities for the youth in this sector. And so imagine this, 300,000 employment opportunities for our young people. And this is the field that they not only love, but they often excel at. I look at my children, my nieces and my nephews, and I'm amazed at their digital skills, as I'm sure many parents in Ghana are. So I'm telling you, like I tell everybody else, let these kids thrive. They are our future, so let them build this future. It will be glorious, I promise you. All they need from us is our support and understanding. And I promise all of them my full support and my wholehearted understanding. My dearest young Ghanaians, I stand by you 100%, and I always will. When we talk about the digital revolution, we also need to talk about the digital divide, about those who are being left behind. On my watch, I'll do whatever it takes to provide universal access and bridge the digital divide in this country. We must close that digital gap. The NDC promised you this, and it was in our 2020 manifesto, that we shall train 1 million coding professionals in demand of digital skills for growth, business process outsourcing, and knowledge process outsourcing ecosystems, ensuring that no one is left behind in this digital revolution. 1 million coders, I mean, just think about it. And I believe we can do it, and this is our plan. It is our pledge to you. And no Ghanaian will be left behind in this digital revolution. We'll fix the deteriorating football pitches and pay stipends to footballers in the Premier League like we promised in 2020. What we call the lesser-known sports shall also receive equitable attention like we give soccer. And I have good news for the creative industry. Our overarching policy for the industry shall be the Black Star experience. And this will be geared towards boosting the tourism and creative arts sector. It will include the Pan-African Month, the Ghana Film Festival and Awards Month, the Ghanaian Heritage and History Month, the Fashion and Food Month, and the Diasporan Month. Additionally, we'll rehabilitate all our regional centers of national culture and make them available to the creative industry. We'll also support aging artists many of whom currently live in poverty. My colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, together we shall overcome. Together we shall reset the narrative and restore Ghana to its rightful place among the Community of Nations. The time for change has come. The time to change this non-performing, corrupt government is now. Let us seize this moment to build the Ghana we want together for a brighter future for our children and for generations yet to come. And also, your commendation. This will not be a 9-day wonder. Everybody knows that when I was president, I held media encounters, every year of my presidency. It's not been the same under this government. They've run away from the searing accountability to the media. We all know that Chapter 12 of our Constitution is on press freedom. And it has been one of the most progressive constitutions that any African country can have, because it gives wide-ranging freedoms to the media to be able to do its work, and principally to carry out their role as the watchdogs of the people, not as the guard dogs of government. Some of us have abdicated that role, and instead of being the watchdogs of the people, we have been the guard dogs of government, savaging people who question and try to hold government accountable. So we must take note of that. Safety of journalists is important, and I must say that in this last administration, journalists have felt more afraid, they have felt more cowed. Many journalists have been harassed, they have been forced to flee the country. I remember a journalist had to run to South Africa and stay there for some time to let things cool off before he returned. Another journalist in the Upper East region who questioned some issues to do with illegal mining also had to run away from the region for fear that he was going to be assaulted or harmed. I remember Ahmed Swali and his murder, assassination, which up till today, government does not seem to have the political will to let the investigations go forward and bring the people who did this to justice. As long as these people are not brought to justice, the possibility exists that they can do something similar in the future. And so these are things that we take seriously. And my track record when I was president is there for everybody to see, that because I'm a colleague of yours, my training is in the media, and so I can empathize with the work you do. And so definitely you can be sure that as president, I'm not going to condone or conspire to harass journalists when they do the work that the Constitution has mandated them to do. We're willing to sit with you and look at any laws that are in contradiction with the Constitution. The Constitution is the overarching law of our country. And so if there are any laws that are punitive and constrain the media from doing its work, they are laws that we can look at and we can amend if necessary. The low salaries are not only the state-owned media, they are even worse in the private media. They are even worse in the private media. And so it's something that we need to attend to. The thing about media is that it is driven mostly by adverts. Unfortunately, things have gotten worse because businesses are suffering currently. The budget for advertising has shrunk. And also because of the number of media that we have, dividing that little budget amongst the media makes it difficult to be able, for the media owners to be able to guarantee bigger salaries. And so even in turning our economic fortunes around and bringing the private sector back onto the path of growth and growing our economy would create a bigger pot for us to be able to give more advertising to media houses so that they can improve the salaries of media people. But in the meantime, if you remember, we set up a media development fund. There were a few challenges at the time, and so we put it in abeyance for the meantime. But I think there is something that we can look at again. Set up a media development fund, government puts seed money into it. It was meant to improve training of journalists. It was meant to attend to welfare of journalists and so on and so forth. And so it's something that we are willing to reactivate. And together with the GJA and all the other media umbrella groups, we'll sit down and see how this media development fund can inure to the benefit of people in the media space. And so those are all things that we are willing to look at. The other question was...
So on the exchange rates.
Yeah, on the exchange rates. The immediate issue with the exchange rate and the economy is that the best signal Ghanaians can send to both domestic and international investors is that we're ready to change the current trajectory on which we are. I think that if we hold a successful election, we demonstrate to the world and our people that we are willing to change this trajectory on which we are, that is leading us further into the abyss. It will restore confidence in the economy. That in itself will send a signal that stabilizes the foreign exchange. Currently, nobody has hope in where we're going. And so people are hedging because of the rate of deterioration of the value of the cedi. People are hedging for other foreign currencies. And when it happens like that, then it puts further pressure on the currency. And so we would instill fiscal discipline, because eventually the main driver of the economy is fiscal discipline and fiscal consolidation. And so if you only want to ramp up revenues, but you're not willing to cut expenditures, then you have a situation where your budget deficit is out of kilter. And as you know, we had a budget deficit that went as high as 15% of GDP. And unless we instill fiscal discipline, we'll continue to have a situation where it puts pressure on our currency. It's like a household budget. You cannot spend more than you earn. And that is what this government has been, spending more money than they earn, borrowing more money than they can afford to pay. And that is what has, created the situation in which we are. So we must reduce the deficit, we must instill fiscal discipline, we must reduce the debt burden, and already there is a debt restructuring going on, and so we must continue the debt restructuring, but make sure that we put in the buffers so that we don't fall into this situation again. In my administration, we set up what we call the sinking fund, and we capped the stabilization fund. So any excess money that was above what should go to the stabilization fund went into the sinking fund. We also committed other revenues into the sinking fund so that we could anticipate debts that were becoming due and pay them. This government came and depleted the sinking fund and did not replenish it. And that is how come that we are in the crisis in which we currently are. And so replace the sinking fund, create more buffers so that the economy is more resilient to shocks. The thing about the world is it's unpredictable and shocks will come. But it is how resilient your economy is that will make you be able to come out of the shocks. We all went into the shock together with Côte d'Ivoire. Today our economy is so battered and bruised. And Côte d'Ivoire's economy is much more stable. And I just saw a video of the president waxing lyrical about Côte d'Ivoire in 2016. Today, I don't think he wants to hear that comparison because inflation is lower in Côte d'Ivoire, far lower, single digit. And our inflation is at 25%. It went as high as 54%. And so discipline is important. But apart from that, part of the reason we're suffering is the collapse of the cocoa sector. Cocoa has been a traditional pillar of this economy. And when I was leaving office, we did a syndication, cocoa syndication of $1.8 billion. The banks had confidence in this country, and so they gave us $1.8 billion upfront to put in the cocoa industry. And this syndication has been going on over the years. Currently, the last syndication we did, we struggled to even make $800 million. I don't think we've received $800 million for the syndication. And so that injection of foreign currency that was predictable and sure, that used to come into the country every year, helped to stabilize the foreign exchange. Today, the cocoa industry is a pale shadow of itself. And so one of the things in the medium term is to revamp the cocoa industry as quickly as possible and make sure that its impact in terms of foreign currency injection is revived. Aside from that, we need to quicken our pace in the oil and gas sector. All of you have heard of the transition to green energy. It is real, it is happening. And so every country that has an oil and gas industry is putting in the maximum investment in order not to have what we call stranded assets. You will have the oil wells, but if that transition is completed, nobody will be interested in putting money to recover that crude oil and gas. These 8 years have been wasted completely. In my time, in 4 years, I worked tooth and nail to bring 2 new oil wells into production. If you look at the 10 years of oil production, from 2010 when we started oil production till 2016 when I left office, we have earned about $3.3 billion from our share of oil production. In the 8 years, that's because of the work I did to bring 2 new oil wells, in the 8 years that Nanado and Baumia have been in office, Ghana has earned $7.3 billion. And so in total, over 10 years, over the period from 2010 till now, we have earned about 10 billion, 7 point something of it in Abaumia and Akufo-Addo's time, and 3 point something of it in Professor Mills and my time. For the last 8 years, nothing has happened in our oil industry. Not a single drop of oil has been added. Unfortunately, our production of oil has reduced by 32%. And so we're producing less. So one of the things we'll do is to quicken and attract the oil companies to come back. As I speak, E&I have run away to Côte d'Ivoire because of the unfavorable environment here. ExxonMobil was going to do significant work here. Because of greed, ExxonMobil decided to pull out because they thought the environment was toxic and corrupt, and so they pulled out. So one of the things is to restore investor confidence in the oil field. And there are oil fields and compartments that have been appraised that are just waiting to begin production. And so revamping them and ramping up our oil production and gas will bring in the needed foreign exchange that will help to shore up our currency. But we must also look at getting more from our extractives. We have bauxite, we have gold, we have lithium, we have manganese, we have so many other minerals. We will work to make sure that Ghana's share of those extractives is increased so that we can have more foreign currency coming into our country. We produce gold, but because it's not streamlined, a lot of that gold is leaking out, and individuals are making the profit instead of the country making it. And so we'll streamline the extraction